Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at one of the most common patterns that has severe impacts on burnout and exhaustion for so many people today. Today we're going to be exploring device addiction, sensory overload, and overstimulation, or as I like to call it, the addiction to more. So, sitting around having a good old doom scroll feels fairly inoffensive, right? But if so, why do we struggle so much to stop doing it when it gets in the way of what's important? Our dependency on devices has become so pervasive that new terms such as phubbing, which is the act of snubbing a physically present person in favor of a mobile phone, are terms that are entering our vocabulary now. So what's going on here? So in order to understand the full scope of what's going on here, we need to explore a little bit about the role that dopamine plays in the brain. Now, dopamine has become very fashionable to talk about recently, but it also often gets very slightly misrepresented, which doesn't help things. Have you ever noticed that the idea of going out to get a particular thing can feel almost more interesting and more rewarding than getting the thing itself? So there are a whole number of things that are at play here, but dopamine plays a role in that. And when we're dealing with a device that can always just dish out the next thing on demand, things start to get really problematic. So dopamine plays a major role in motivating us towards rewarding stimuli. It is more about the anticipation of getting something than about the receipt itself. Now, if you think about how we evolved, this is a really beneficial system to have. If you can't motivate yourself to go out and hunt down some food, you're gonna die. Bye-bye human species.
Oh no!
But when we think about what that looks like today, in a time where we have an excessive overabundance of resources and stimuli, then suddenly that WALL-E dystopia starts to feel a little too close for comfort, doesn't it? So this is not about bashing social media or device usage because they're not inherently bad. This is specifically about when it becomes compulsive and unmanageable. This is about when it starts to take a toll on the well-being of an individual and those around them. Bringing it back to the 7 types of rest, this cycle of numbing and overstimulating is particularly damaging to our sensory rest and to our mental rest. This consequently has the capacity to leave us wired, frazzled, inattentive, and incapable of engaging with or absorbing more information. We have limited resources, and we can't expect to fry our brains and then have them continue chugging away, firing on all cylinders, unaffected by the assault that we inflict upon them. Then there are the nervous system and the circadian rhythm dysregulations that come into play. When you spend most of your day in front of a screen overstimulating yourself, you spend a significant part of your time in a heightened state. Now, you might not experience that as emotionally stressful, but it is still physiologically stressful. Additionally, when you have disproportionate exposure to a blue light a few inches from your face, you eventually are not going to have a particularly great circadian rhythm. This then impacts sleep quality, sleep quantity, and the impacts just keep piling on from there. Finally, there is the concern of adaptation. Without boring you with a biochemistry lecture, the TLDR is that if you're chronically overexposing yourself to dopamine-seeking behaviors, you will adapt. The more that you get, the more that you will want. And as well as seeking out more quantity of stimulation, you're also going to be looking for more amplified stimulation because the things that used to give you a hit are simply not cutting the mustard anymore. Suddenly, you need the TV in the background while you scroll in the foreground, and you can't handle going anywhere for a walk without a podcast in your ear. If this continues, eventually all of this pleasure-seeking behavior actually leads to a lot of dissatisfaction because suddenly everything that you're supposed to be concentrating on just isn't that rewarding anymore. And it's definitely not as interesting as that new shiny thing over there. And so while you keep chasing and continue to adapt, you will also increasingly enjoy things far less, be able to focus on things far less, and be far less capable of strategizing and holding vision for the long term. Long term is boring, and it's definitely not going to get you any dopamine anytime soon, and so it gets cast aside in favor of what's going to make you feel good right now, regardless of how that might make you feel later. So you can probably see how this pattern is the destroyer of dreams. This pattern also has the capacity to show up in many different areas of life, such as how we show up in dating, to exercise, and just about anything that can have a long-term goal applied to it. And this pattern becomes exceptionally problematic around device usage because this involves algorithms that are constantly being updated specifically for the purpose to pull you in more and more. If you want to be in charge of your life, this is something that you're going to want to understand because it's not going anywhere anytime soon. That is why this is one of the most commonly covered topics with my clients, because we can all get hooked on more. I hope that you have found today interesting and useful. Join me next time when I continue to explore this addiction to more. Specifically, I want to cover some of the ways in which we can fall prey to this pattern and what we can do about it. Until then, peace out. So sitting around just having a good old doom scroll feels... I want to go to the aquarium.
You know, we should go to an aquarium.
Our dependency on... Really, Tico? Let the plane pass. I swear they get louder when we're doing this. At least I don't sound like a 2-pack-a-day smoker anymore like I did at 7 a.m. with the back burning. Of course, the dogs magically start getting interested in rummaging around in ways they never do. Excuse me.
But I believe it.
Is that someone throwing up?
Yep.
Because of course. Lovely. Then there are the nervous system and circadian rhythm impacts to take into account. Blank. Finally, there is the issue of adaptation. I'm going to say that again because I didn't say off. I just ate it. I'm so hungry. It's not going to get you any dopamine, I'm sorry, I just did something weird with my hands. Flicking my ring. That came out ring. This ring.